Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. You're listening to our Dungeons and Dragons game. As always, I'm your host, the Dungeon Master, or DM for short. And this is part 3 of the Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. It's an old module for D&D where the characters find a spaceship, which is kind of cool. If you haven't seen the earlier videos, I would check those out first, or this one might not make sense to you. So that said, let's dive in. The prologue is that Eliza the Air Maiden entered a section of the lab where everything seemed to be rusty. But as it turns out, it wasn't rust at all. It was brown colored mold. So not only is Eliza now infected by the mold, turning her into a Vegepygmy, but all of the equipment and treasure she was carrying also got contaminated by the russet mold spores. The other PCs looked on in horror as their teammate was assimilated. So that was sort of the cliffhanger of part 2. That's the prologue to part 3. And then we get into the plot. And everybody was freaking out about this and wasn't sure what to do. And Bart the Beholder used Death Ray. And the Death Ray was able to kill all the mold. So it not only took out the Air Maiden, but it destroyed all of the mold that was on her equipment, right? And then after all that happened, she respawned. And since her equipment had been cleansed or whatever you want to call it, she got it back. So it seemed like a pretty difficult thing to deal with normally, and everybody had just kind of overlooked one of the Beholder's abilities. At any rate, from there, then the PCs head to room 30. They were in 31. So they go over to room 30 for those who are following along with their own map of the Barrier Peaks. And that's the ship's library. And sort of a reminder from last week, everything here is cassette punk. So all of the various workstations are capable of playing movies and music, etc. But it's all like cartridges, and it's how do I want to describe cassette punk for those who are unfamiliar with it? If you think of the first Alien movie that was made in the late 70s, at the time they made it, they thought they were predicting the future. But if you go back and watch that movie now, it's kind of dated. You know what I mean? That's cassette punk. So just as steampunk is how people in the 1800s Victorian era, excuse me, it how they imagined the future, right? Cassette punk is how people in like the 70s and 80s and stuff, how they imagine the future, which makes sense because that's when this module was written, was back in the day, right? So at any rate, when they're finding things like videos to watch, it's like a weird cartridge that you have to put into a viewing device, you know. It's not how we watch videos these days. But in a way it's good because the cartridge technology as presented in the module has held up better than a lot of alternatives would. So like having something like they never call them VCR tapes, but it seems to be what they're kind of hinting at, is something akin to a VCR tape. It doesn't need a power source, right? It can just be like on a shelf, and that movie is fine. Unlike, say, certain things where, you know, if it goes without power long enough, that file is just gone. You know, that hard drive is empty, you know, that kind of thing. So you get the gist. At any rate, so Arthur shows some of the PCs a few things from Earth. And Eliza, the Air Maiden, thinks it's actually pretty cool. And she searches the area. She's better at searching than everybody else in the party is. And there are 4 crewmen that were in this room that are just skeletons now. And so behind one of them, she finds a gray access card. After that, they head to Area 29, which is the ship's stores. Here they find rations, ammo, and what amounts to healing potions. They also find a remote control for the repair robots. And it kind of resembles an Atari 2600, where it's got like wood paneling on it that's brown, and then it has purple buttons that light up. So Arthur's trying to explain retrofuturism to the other PCs, but because technology rarely progresses in the D&D world, the PCs really don't have any idea what he's talking about. Likewise, they question him about the rations they found, where they find like dehydrated food. So he's trying to explain to them the concept of dehydrating things, and they kind of don't get that either. At any rate, after that, everybody goes to Area 28, which is the central computer, where Gamish, who is the ghost of a Tinker Gnome, has tried to possess the computer. So Arthur enjoys getting a chance to talk to Gamish again since they're old friends. Gamish explains that he's doing his best, but he needs some of those repair robots to lend a hand because certain circuits are broken and the ship is messed up from being looted. So Arthur tells Gamish he just found this remote control that works those robots, and he says as soon as he gets control of them, he will bring them here for Gamish to tell him what needs done. After that, they go to Area 27, which is a small arms locker, where the PCs find 20 sleep gas grenades, 20 incendiary grenades, and 20 fragmentation grenades. Then Area 26 is sick bay. Nothing has changed in here since the last time Arthur visited the ship. Area 25 is a security office where the PCs encounter some police robots that remind the players of the Daleks from Doctor Who. So they're kind of like a cylinder-shaped robot, and they've got these mechanical tentacles. And point being, they demand to see identification. So the PCs that actually have the correct colored cards are not arrested, but the other ones are arrested and placed in the brig. So the goofy thing is, like, the robots just go to the next room. Like, they've done what they set out to do. And so the PCs who didn't get arrested can just hit the button to open the cell, you know? And they talk to Arthur about how Arthur's long-term goal here is he wants to fix the ship. I mean, this is their escape pod because Atropos, the Endbringer, is coming. He's kind of like Galactus, right? So he's coming to this planet. He's on his way. You can see him in the sky slowly approaching. They want the ship to get off world. And one of the things Arthur said earlier is kind of like, don't break stuff and you can help it. And so they're applying that to these robots where they're like, should we break the robots or are these going to be useful? And Arthur doesn't know if maybe Gamish could use them to like fix the ship to get off the world. So to make a longer story short, the one of them that has the correct colored card gives it to Arthur. Arthur walks out and sort of uses logic with the robots, convincing them that they are malfunctioning, and the robots get switched off without actually breaking them. At any rate, after that, they go straight west to Area 24, which is another one of these malfunctioning gravity tubes that leads down to the lower levels of the ship. Last time Arthur in that party came here, they encountered a bunch of doppelgangers who pretended to be human survivors, and the remains of those doppelgangers are still here, undisturbed. After that, the PCs move through Area 32, which is a huge area, right? It contains tons and tons of crew quarters. In almost every one of these rooms, has at least one Vegepygmy boss and some Vegepygmy underlings, as well as a dog-like plant creature called a Thorny. After a while, the PCs get this down to a science. The female android opens the door because she's immune to the death ray. Beholder then uses the death ray, shining it inside the door, kind of surprise attacking whatever's in there. Most of the time, he just kills the Vegepygmies in the room. On rare occasions, though, a rare Vegepygmy, excuse me, manages to make his saving throw and survive the attack. That's when the Air Maiden finishes him off with a blaster. And this was really tedious, by the way. This just went on forever. It was a bunch of identical rooms. And almost every room had the exact same bad guys and almost the exact same treasure. And so it just wasn't a lot of fun to play that part out. I love the module overall. This part of it was tedious, though. So after that, then we get into the epilogue, which I really like. So the PCs circle around through the southeast quadrant, and they're following the outside of the ship, sort of the curvature of the hull in a way, right? And they're coming up into the northeast quadrant, and once they get here, they reach Area 18, which is the captain's quarters. This room is part of a 5-room suite that served as the apartment for the captain and his family. Everything in here is disordered from the old plague days when the mold was starting to become a thing, right? But nothing in here has been looted. So the first room they enter is the living room / reception area. It has couches, armchairs, small tables, paintings, etc. Area 18A is the captain's personal chamber. This room was left intact after the captain vanished on level 2 in pursuit of the intellect devourer. The desk contains mostly paperwork, writing implements, microfilm spools, and other such objects. Eliza, the Air Maiden, notices 6 color cards shoved into a stack of papers. There's black, brown, violet, yellow, orange, and red present. So that's a big deal. Having these color cards is like a huge part of the adventure. So that's kind of a big haul. Area 18B is the captain's closet. And when the Air Maiden searches that, she finds a needler pistol with 4 ammo clips. Area 18C is a private lounge and dining area. There's a pair of soft couches that rest at one end of the room. The other side contains a large ovular table surrounded by chairs that kind of look like an egg. Within it, the chair's got like one leg under the middle of it. It's like one of those chairs from the Men in Black movie, if you remember that, the first one. At any rate, so there's then a liquor cabinet here that looks like everything here is perfectly intact. The PCs leave the liquor alone, which is fortunate because there's all sorts of rules in the module for how that can be super poisonous after all these years. Area 18D is the master bedroom. There's like a huge bed in here, as well as a platinum sculpture of the ship that's displayed on the wall. And so when I think of that, I kind of think of Star Trek: The Next Generation, how Picard's, what do they call it? The conference room had all of those golden kind of ship models against the wall that showed earlier iterations of the Enterprise. And then finally, Area 18E is the captain's wife's retreat. This room contains a long, low sofa made of soft material. It's facing several lounge chairs. Also here is a dressing table and a small desk. And everything in here has a woman's touch, right? A skeleton is lying on the sofa, its shoes removed, and it's holding a cup in its hand. And so this is the captain's wife. And she took her own life with a cyanide capsule. And her bones have been here undisturbed ever since. So when they walk in, Arthur kind of kneels next to her, and it's a really sad scene. And from her point of view, it's like her husband's gone at this point. The crew is basically turning into zombies, you get it, right? So it's this really touching, sad moment, but you know, we're then reminded that Atropos, the Endbringer, is getting closer, right? And as he approaches a planet, the chances of the dead rising increases. And so we get this almost like what would I compare it to? Like a creep show kind of a moment where the captain's wife is reanimated then. So she attacks the PCs. She's a skeleton. But we get kind of a jump scare here at the end. And a reminder that, Atropos is getting closer. They can't be taking their time doing stuff. The ship is in really bad shape, and they really need this thing working soon, you know? So the clock is ticking. But that's sort of our cliffhanger for this one. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about it. I certainly enjoyed running it. My players enjoyed playing it. If you want to support the channel, as always, hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, leave us a comment, all that jazz. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.